right, Gerardo Martinez. Good to see
Hey.
ya.
Hello.
All right. Well, how have you been since I've seen you? I mean, the last time I saw you was, gosh, it
Over a
had to be
year ago.
over. Oh yeah,
I
over a year.
can't. I can't. I can't.
It's been a year. How,
Yes,
how's it been for
absolutely.
you in that year?
It's been a roller coaster. I'm sure for everybody. It has. It's certainly been ever changing climate with everything that's going on, and I think adjusting to everything, we all had a level of a different level of adjustments. Worse for some, worse from others. But how about yours? Have you
No,
had an interesting
it's been good for me. I actually enjoyed
change?
learning, doing the online, uh, like using online services more. So, like on days that I couldn't make it to the studio, I've been teaching online. So I've kind of really embraced this whole online learning,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing replaces being in person, as you can imagine.
Absolutely, yes. I think as a musician, like there is at least some level of. I mean, especially with sound, right? I think like as a musician, like that's been like a struggle of capturing the sound of the beats, like really, like listening to those like nuances. Yeah, and learning the little tricks, that are like in music that that the help that does not translate well via technology.
You got a great position in an orchestra recently. I saw that on Facebook.
No, they just. I mean, I was just like principal second. They're just highlighting their members through the pandemic.
Please tell me how
Maintaining
that happened.
maintaining an active profile in the right now with not a lot of like performing. Obviously, the arts, much of the arts are stopped. A lot of like obviously big companies that have like budget can easily like major orchestras obviously in Chicago. I perform a little like I perform in a community orchestras that they just highlight their members, and they do it like a little like a biography on them, and I play in a community orchestra, and they was just highlighting one of
I
the members.
I loved it. It made me happy. I don't know. I just saw it's like, oh, Gerardo. That's a good idea.
Yeah, the organizations just in there moving, and there's some kind of activities in the orchestra. There's there everybody's like I said, everybody's doing different things to keep that going. Many organizations, like from like the I guess the from any schools orchestras I have done like the little like the online recitals. They different use a different programs technology. I mean, has adjusted as best as they can in the music field, right? I'm sure there's many apps, collaboration ways that or apps that you do with like your students or organizations or groups for them
What
to
is the
continue playing.
what is the name of that orchestra that you work
I
with?
play for the Lake Shore Symphony Orchestra.
Lake Shore Symphony Orchestra. And how did you
It's
get started there? How did that?
a
When did?
it's a community orchestra. I joined some of I knew some of its members, and it was nearby. I know they practice at Northside College Prep, so it's nearby Northeastern. So it's in the area. I was around my area at the time when I was living. Yeah,
When
in
was
the
it? You
Port
said
Park.
5 years ago. You said?
No, I so here's the thing. I've done a few collaborations with them before I joined fully. I played back in the day with that. I can't remember the year, but a few years back I played with them. And then I stopped. Then I stopped because I was finishing school. And then they called me again. I play mandolin, so they called me to play mandolin in one. It's called pieces Roman festivals by Otorino Respighi, and in that that piece features a mandolin solo in between. Uh, the mandolin I was assigned to performing that part. it
Have you
was it
played?
was it was fun. It's a fun piece to play. Just being many great compositions.
Do you know many great mandolin players?
Yeah, I mean, there's Mr. Avital. Is it Aviva Avital? There's some there's many mandolin players that have highlighted a lot of the mandolin works that there exist, and
In Chicago?
yeah, yeah, with Chicago
Really?
Symphony, Yo-Yo Ma has had like a CD with like a mandolin player,
I don't know
prominent mandolin
many.
player. I can't.
It's just that's a unique talent that you have. You know, to
Chris. There's another famous mandolinist, really great. I know uh, I'm blanking out now, but Chris I you don't know how to say it, but it's the spelling is Thile, I think. Chris Thiele. Another great mandolin player too, and like I mean has recorded many repertoire. You know, I guess there's a lot of like similarities with the mandolin and violin because it's the same fingerings basically, just different techniques. So it's translatable in some ways. So I mean, there's so much repertoire that's in the violin and mandolin that you could share. So you know they've done great contributions performing like Bach sonatas for an accompanied violin and the mandolin, and I think it's such a great thing. You know, I've heard violin concertos with mandolin as well, and then you know Bach concertos that translate very well into the mandolin. Obviously, you get into something more romantic. That requires much, let's say, technique in the mandolin that's like really fast for picking, obviously, that you would pick from a violin violin concerto, right? One of the big ones, majors, Tchaikovsky, Mendelssohn. I mean, obviously those are pieces that require like high levels of technique that will be much difficult to translate into the mandolin. But
have you do you identify as like a violinist or a mandolinist or some weird? If you had to pick,
oh, that's very difficult. I guess I played it to my benefit where I like. I mean, I would say I'm a violinist. Um, I mean, I think I had the most training in the mandolin. I mean, in the violin. I'm sorry, but with the mandolin, it's something that because it's unique, you can play off of like, well, not many people play this instrument, so you can play to its rarity.
mm,
You can use that advantage to like, oh yeah, I'm a mandolin player, right? So you get to pick and choose, right? Which side it benefits you. I mean, I've done things with both, and I like them both. Obviously, it's more rare to find pieces in the I guess in the mandolin, right? You get called for what, like Mahler 7,
mm.
uh, Roman festivals. There's Mozart aria, I think, that has a mandolin little part, but I can't even tell you which one it is. It's a very rare thing. But at least like in the standard repertoire, that's not like
It's
a
underrepresented.
common thing. Yeah, it's not a common thing, and it's fine. And there is there's other aspects of the mandolin when there's like solo rap or other pieces, but I
Well,
want to say not in the orchestral setting.
someone one would ask, how did it start though with the mandolin? Because
I
like,
mean, you
did you
get
just
close to like lute, kind of those instruments,
but
lute,
did you
guitar.
pick it up
mandolin.
at a young age? How did it happen? How did you?
My family actually, well, my in the region that I come from, Mexico, there's this group
What region?
called.
Oh, you definitely have
I'm
to tell
from
me the.
I'm from this place called Guanajuato. So there, that area in Guanajuato has this musical organizations called Estudiantinas. A group of students with guitar, mandolin, lutes, all the instruments, bandurria. And they go and we play what's called callejoneadas on the street. So they call them, I guess it would translate into alleys, but not the alleys the way we think of them here. Callejoneadas are more like the smaller streets in Mexico. That it's just kind of thing mostly for walking, but they're very tiny, like options to the streets, and then they just go through them, serenading, the city, and it's like you said, this staple of like the town when you go visit. That's what they're known for. So that this groups have those are the instruments. So my uncle from my mom's side is as a founding member of one of the first estudiantinas, and he currently he lives in Chicago, right? But like growing up, my mother played the mandolin, church choir, but also having learned from her brother, learned the mandolin at a young age. I remember seeing her playing the mandolin and asking her like, "Oh, can you teach me?" And it was like by ear, right? Like she'll play something and I'll just repeat it in a way, and then that's kind of how I learned. But there were no, because I started such a young age. This organization, there's like groups usually.
How old?
I for college level groups that they do during their like college years. Obviously, when I started learning, it was much younger age. Uh, and then there's not many organizations other than church choirs, I guess, that they would play that. So I didn't do much with that over there until I moved to Chicago when I was 13, and then my uncle has a group here where I started playing more, getting more involved in the actual like playing in a group or learning more music, right? More uh, being more involved in music and in the mandolin, and obviously like learning more. I don't think I ever took like instruction, like private instruction. It was mostly like what I was learning from my family. And it was not until I had more like of a training in violin that I was able to translate other things, learn other music, and be able to more like research, right? More for the mandolin, and then other repertoire that there exists, and then you come and find that there's like vast repertoire. There's like I mean the equivalent to what they call like caprices, but the Paganini caprices for the violin. There's an equivalent for the mandolin, and then there's just repertoire there. It's like equally demanding technically from the mandolin, and there's some beautiful works that there exist for mandolin and mandolin concertos by other composers that are very very beautiful. I know there's a Hoffman mandolin concerto and a Hummel mandolin concerto that there exist, and they're really nice. I think that they're one of them is in D major, and then the other one I can't remember on the top of my head. But there's really really many repertoire for the mandolin that there exists. Not
And
as
so, you and your
not as
uncle are still close. Then you guys still
yeah,
play?
we still play. Obviously, with the pandemic has stopped a lot of the things, but we would have performances throughout the year. Well, with different like groups, National Mixing of Mexican Art, or generally it's been a place where that we collaborate with and do concerts there. Most recently, my uncle's group started a school. He's been teaching mandolin, guitar. I involve myself minimally in the project by helping out a little bit here and there in that section. I know once you get involved, it requires a lot of your time. I'm sure you know
Hmm.
that takes a lot. And if I was to get involved in the project, it would take a lot of time. And I mean, I think it's a good organization because it plays to the like. There's not a group with this instruments, right? As many as it exists. And I mean, in Chicago, I wouldn't know the many. And I
Yeah.
think you can play to that, and contributes to part of like at least in the region of Mexico, right? A lesser known part of the music, everybody right away associates mariachi, which is not wrong. It's also a great, and it's been a growing group in Mexico. I think in the education levels. I don't know if you've seen experimented. At least I know here in the south side of Chicago, where I'm located, many schools have embraced that model of like teaching music and then have the students perform in mariachi groups. That's a kind of music they explore, but in that way they learn the music aspects, right? Like theory and things like that. But instead of like performing in like a band or orchestra, something that's more associated to the person's heritage, right? So you'll get to learn the music, the theory of the music, but then you'll get to play the music in something that's more relatable to your culture.
Is your family it is your it seems like music and your family are very tied together, like culture and heritage. Like you have a musical family. Is that
Yeah, I think that's where I come from, right? Like from my dad's side, my grandfather had a mariachi group from my dad's side, and then from my mom, her brother has this organization. So I've always my family growing up. I mean, there's always been the involvement in music in some way from both sides, and you end up picking it up. And then just working in it. I mean, not everybody is musician, but we definitely have a strong musical background. I think it's a big component of like, I guess, who our family is, right? It's something that it never lacks. We always have the music, like the playing, and it's also a good way to like mingle with your family. It makes for great moments, parties, absolutely. Great parties, I will say. Absolutely.
I try to imagine what that's like. I don't really know. I didn't have like that strong musical presence in my family growing up. So, I would you say that like more people need that, or like just even if they're not like professional musicians or whatever, like just having music in the culture at home? Do you think I don't know? It's important for like
I think,
everyone.
yeah, for many cultures, it's a big part of, like, I guess, I mean, just at least how we grew up, and I mean, I think it's beneficial, at least in many ways. It leads to obviously, like, unity. You have a way to, like, with your family, to have an activity that, like, it unites you, connects you in a more, like, I guess, a deeper level, other than just like a superficial. I mean, I think music requires an agreement, right? When you're playing with somebody, and like understand each other in a different way. And people, it's a completely different language with different, not just like verbal communication, but like physical, and like, like just moving, or like giving direction in each other and communicating in a different way, right? While you're playing music, you can't say words. You begin communicating with each other with sounds and in ways that that you don't think of. Right? That sometimes you think you're just doing it, but you just play with somebody, but you don't realize that you have to connect with them in a completely different, I mean, at a completely different level that we don't normally think of. And I think that's enhancing in many ways, but not just in an interrelationship kind of way, but I think mentally, it makes you stretch your mind in in a different aspects, right? You think like exercise, just it trains your brain, not only like physically, but mentally. And I think music does that as well. It has benefits that can bring from like discipline to like, like think of it like as a puzzle. There's many aspects that like just music playing involved in the mind, like from coordination or analyzing something. And it's such a tiny thing that we don't consciously think of it, I think. And it has many benefits, and I've always advocated for that. That also builds like discipline, right? Like you build a discipline. I think, like me, I've been involved in many organizations. I know I played in an orchestra that was built mostly of like youth students, and the conductor sometimes would ask us to join and play with the orchestra and fill up seats. And many of the students would graduate to other careers, right? But I think this goes hand in hand with, like, I mean, the school curriculum, that I think it enhances. it definitely enhances learning by bringing a lot of components from like discipline, like like building a discipline, organization skills, problem solving that we don't think,
Focus.
right? That we don't think of,
Mm.
that are developed through music. People think it's like you just play, but no, like you go like deeper than that. You gotta develop a sense of awareness in your mind and problem solving. Again, like organizing music as a unit, right? You have to organize phrases. You use a lot of like, believe it or not, a lot of mathematical questions, or in the ones you become like analyzing music and studying it at a deeper level, right? Like you get the sound, but like the more and more that you learn, the more and more you learn how other other things are involved. I want to say like physics, distances. You begin learning about like pressure, speed, how like amount of pressure. I play violin. The amount of pressure that you press or the amount of speed affects sound and things like that. You start making that correlation. Conversely proportional, inversely proportional. You think you think like music is no music can be science in many ways, and I think it's a very important thing that goes hand in hand with like regular learning with the curriculum that they stress in schools. Math, science. It's a big part of it, and I think music definitely enhances this, and I think there's much value there to be gained through music education.
I was curious, do you remember specific moments where you experienced like that higher level of music? Like either you were playing with someone and you were just like a feeling just kind of like overcame you, or do you have any moments like that where like you're like, wow, this is amazing?
I mean, as a musician, I'm sure. Yeah, I have had my moments where you're like, "Wow, this is." I mean, I've had many good moments. The one that I can recall right now is playing Mahler Symphony Number 1. Right, last movement, last page. French horns stand up, and then they're just blasting the theme, what the violins are just supporting, harmony in the bottom. And it was just a great moment, right? We were performing at the what's that hall, the downtown, the cultural center, and it was we used to have some, and it used to be a free concert, and anybody could like just join the concert and watch us play in this community orchestra that was playing. We're playing Mahler 1, last movement, and then last page, and it's just like the sound, and you just kind of like playing, and it was a moment that you're like, wow, like this is what music is about, right? Like just hear the power of it, just being in the middle of it, or not, right? I was, it was a moment that like I pulled up myself away from the notes, and I was like, whoa, like this is amazing. I'm sitting here, and I'm like, it's just, I was just so involved in the thing that I was doing it kind of like in like an automatic way, but I was enjoying it. What was happening. I was enjoying the D major that was just resounding in the hall. It was a nice moment. I think that's one of the main ones that I can
Yeah,
remember.
I'll just share a quick one. I know there's always so many, but one that I remember was with you actually. I know you were playing the Haydn piano trio. There was a
Mm.
moment. There was a moment I think when we were playing it, I was just like, "This is so fun." this, I was like, I remember hearing like just your melodic lines running in with like the piano, and then just hearing the cello support and the bass. It wasn't terribly complicated, but it was just so fun. It was like that. I mean, Haydn always writes the most playful music,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think there was a moment there when I was just like, I, "This is amazing."
Yeah, I remember that when we played that the high end quartet. It's a fun. See, you get you meet many people and like experience music. I mean, in different ways. Like how you like meet other people, and then like you get to play ensembles, and then I think you learn how other people view or experiment music, and I think uh, it benefits you, enriches, your perception, and like for music in general. I think like you learn new ways of approaching, like from like uh from like tips of how to approach something to just like phrases or uncovering things that you might not seen in the music, and then you're like, wow, like sometimes like, okay, this is another like beauty of like of music, another beauty of this piece, that sometimes in our parts we don't always see, right? In an ensemble you have the piano part, you have the accompany parts, and like just rehearsing it, you're like, oh wow, like you begin connecting more with it, right? With the piece, and with your peers as well. And you learn, like how to communicate, right? How to like I give you an entrance, right? How do I communicate with you? How do you get to know a person, right? Very well. Right? Like, when you're in rehearsal, from their happy moments to the frustrating moments where you're like, like, how do we tackle this problem, right? And then you experience that collaboration and like higher we come from higher education to other jobs, right? People have to work in teams and find that collaboration. I mean, it works in other ways as well. And try to like set like try to improve communication skills and approaching, like how are you gonna approach this problem in this piece, and that's how like kids too can benefit from ensembles, especially string quartets. I think string quartets bring a like a big level of like collaboration, just for people having to agree or look at a problem and like how we solve it, you know and then it translates into life and anything that you do.
Do you
Absolutely.
was there a moment for you when you are like, I love music. Like this is something that's going to be part of me for the rest of my life. Was there like a moment in your life when you can remember like it triggered you or
Oh wow, that's interesting one. I don't know if I have that moment where I said I'm
this is amazing. Like the
like.
first moment you were like,
I mean, I had already played and I enjoyed like playing music, but I think the moment that put me where I was like, wow, this is something I want to pursue, I guess. I was in high school. I had been playing for maybe 2 years, and then we had this like what they call IMEA, Illinois Music Educators Association, and then students have like an orchestra. I made it into the orchestra somehow. I was learning, but I think they just had to choose somebody from each school, and
how old were you?
they chose me. I was maybe 15. I was a junior. I want to say junior, maybe senior. I was probably older. And then we go to this the festival that they do in a suburb. I can't remember. It was so long ago, but you go and then so I'm there, and it was a little intimidating because I mean I have been playing for maybe a year and a half have been playing, and then I have to go I get selected. I mean, year and a half I had started playing the violin. I hadn't that much proficiency in it. I get selected, and I got to see like students my age or younger like playing like insane stuff. And then I'm just like all scared, like I don't know much. And then we were playing Ruslan and Ludmilla piece, an overture, and it was like a massive like sound, just the beginning, just the major chords, bum 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 bum, bum, and then it's just hearing that like at the beginning massive sound, you're like, wow, like it was like it's the first moment I was like, this is like such an enjoyable experience, right? I guess at a bigger scale, I mean, I had done like smaller ensembles, but this was one that I was like, wow, like the power like of music, or it was that moment that I guess that first hit me with like that kind of like pride that I'm like, wow, like I want to do this, like I'm really enjoying doing this. I think that's the moment that I was like, okay, I
And
think
for
this is
me,
I think this is my thing.
mm,
I guess music is my thing.
I was the same age. I had a musical experience, and I was like, I want to say 16. And I was just like, but it was a trio. It was a trio, and I was just like, whoa. But well, it wasn't classical. It was a rock band, and
Oh,
I,
really?
I was playing bass guitar, and that moment I was just like I didn't know that three kids could make music without like it was just us making this
Uh-huh.
sound, and I was just like, it was so cool. So like, but I had the same experience. I feel like is what you're talking about, and I think it goes back to what you're saying about how people can have different experiences and they share them with each other, and higher learning happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Like things that you don't like necessarily like know you're learning and yet.
I think that explains why you like the big orchestra pieces so much. I think like because you love the sound Mahler, of course. I mean,
In a way, I guess I have that.
and that might explain why I enjoyed the piano trio that we did so much. Like that reminded me of my younger days.
I guess, yes,
Maybe.
yes. Yeah, I do. I am a fan of those like big works. Wagner, Strauss.
Harmonically thick music.
I guess, yes. German, Brahms.
Sibelius.
Sibelius, Sibelius has had some beautiful symphonies. Symphony Number 5 is one of my
Oh yeah.
favorite ones. That's a beautiful horn solo on the last. I mean, horn, not solo, horn part. It's not a solo. It's the
So
horn section.
if you didn't have mandolin or violin, what would be your next instrument?
Well, you know the answer to this question.
I do.
French horn. No, I'm kidding. I do like French horn.
French horn is
I
nice.
do enjoy. Yeah, but I mean, like piano would have been my number one instrument if I could.
When were you introduced to the piano? When do you remember that?
Piano. I mean, just going to church music. I think my first experience it was might have been a church organ. Um, that I mean that I it call my attention, I guess, in a way, but just not necessarily the sound. Just because like I was like, oh my god, it has so many keys, right? I think that's my memory as a kid. Like they had so many keys, like that's so cool, like and it makes sounds. So like the whole it might have been like a keyboard kind of thing. So my experience is a little bit more like keyboards. And then piano. But I remember always trying to go touch the piano when as a kid, I don't know that all kids all do that, and their parents are like, don't touch that, and but it was I was always curious about it. Obviously, is that I guess when I start music, practice rooms at school have pianos, so kids. I mean, I was in high school, and then kids, just want to play, and they're like, oh, it's cool. So I mean, they're there, so you take sometimes the opportunity to like I guess on your I mean on my own I would like try to like figure out ways of how do you play it and things like that.
Do you remember the first
And I
piece
like that.
where you were like, "Wow, I really like piano. This is nice."
I don't know. I think because I was learning it through like a piano where it like the keys would like light up. It was a keyboard where the keys light up. I think you know what I think that's too advanced. It had like a little bit of like an I want to say analog screen on the piano, the keyboard, I guess, and it'll tell you where to put your fingers, and it was Canon, and and then I was learning it, and I'm like, oh my god, because you start feeling the two hands of the piano, and you're like, wow, like you
Did
get
you
that
learn
moment.
it? Did you learn
I
most
think
of
I
it?
learned most of it, but it's that part where you're like, oh my god, like Like I can play the piano, you know, like you're like, wow, I can play a piece on the piano, right? And it was like an easy arrangement, you know, like just mostly black chords, I think, octaves, maybe if anything, and nothing fancy on the left hand of the piano, and then on the right, you know, you do a little bit of the melody, then you get the fast part. Everybody.
Oh yeah.
So it's so weird talking about Canada.
No, no. I mean,
But yeah, you know, like you get this sense of like this pride and where like, oh my god, you know, like I can play, you know, and that I enjoyed it, and you know, I wanted to play more, and then you know, that was the piece, you know, like you played on the piano, and I was like, oh, I learned it, and then, but I didn't continue to play more because I was just most focused on violin, practicing more violin. That was during high school. This doesn't become I think an instrument that it was, you know, it was always there. I always enjoyed it. I think in the back of my head I always, I mean, I enjoy a lot of like piano repertoire. As you may know, I mean, like my favorite pieces are probably piano pieces. I mean, I love like cello, I mean, not, sorry, piano concerti, you know, all
I
Beethoven piano
am I
concerti.
am I wrong in I think you were obsessed with that E minor prelude by Chopin.
No, well, I
No,
mean, it was a piece I learned that I had to learn for like our piano class in school.
I thought you really liked it. I thought
I
you
liked
really.
it because I learned it. That's all,
Oh,
because it was easy.
it was easy. Okay.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, it's a grade of difficulty, and then, but it's, you know, it's a piece that I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn it, and then like I had to present at the end. All students had to do that. I guess that semester.
Mm.
Whatever I learned that one, I chose it. And then I learned it, and then, you know, I liked it, but I mean, I am a constant uh seeker for like piano rep, you know, like if I'm listening to something, you know. I mean, I have my Ravel key piano concerto, Prokofiev 3, C major. It's a beautiful piece. And then I have my favorite recordings by like who plays them and things like that. I just like, you know, I enjoy that, you know, or which orchestra plays it, better phrases, better, you know, the phrases, or which pianist uh, does a better job with which concerto, you know. I have, you know, and then the Saint-Saëns G minor, number 2 in G minor, piano concerto. It's
Mm.
beautiful. I don't know. There are many things, many pieces. I mean, the big ones, Grieg, Schumann. But then, you know, I tried different pieces. I mean, the Shostakovich piano concerto is beautiful.
Do you
I
think
admit there's amazing piano rap.
you'll ever be a conductor or take on that role?
I mean, obviously I like it, but I it's the groundwork that it takes, and then I think at the stage in my life it would be something difficult, but something that I would enjoy. I think, but it would require like a more deeper study kind of thing. It'll be another thing that would need to be, I mean, studied. I think,
You
and
think
then.
you do you think
I
you
mean,
could
I
be
would
trained?
obviously I enjoy it, as you already know. It's something
Yeah.
that I would love to do.
Well, and music history. I gotta ask you, like, I feel like you're just as passionate about music history as you are the way the music actually sounds. Is that how did that happen?
I don't know. It was, it just to me, when I moved from Mexico to here, and then in high school I started playing I started playing violin, but like I started going to Merit School of Music. And my after my first year, my teacher in high school tells me, "Well, I can't really like teach you, but I'm gonna send you here." This is after my first like school year, like fall, like spring, like the whole school year. We finished in the end, you know, that you should, she recommends that you keep playing. And I have this recommendation, sends me to Merit School of Music. I go there, and I realize there are many students that are like much younger than I am. no, know all these things are better prepared, and I felt like I needed to catch up. So when I was in school during my lunchtime, I just started like researching like the main composers, who they are, where they came from, or like people that I could remember. Just trying to go on a computer and research. This is 2003, 2004, right? We have the I'm like googling or I don't know if it was Google, but trying to find a search engine and like learn about these composers on my own because my school wasn't really high school wasn't really teaching me music in that level, in that sense. So I just felt the need to learn it on my own because I liked this. I would just go to the library, spend time like reading on this, and try to memorize as much as I can. I mean, I remember the big composers that I would read on like their biographies and learn as much as I could, like Bach, one of them, like big date that I would always remember from back then was from like he died 1750 or whatever marks the period change. Baroque to classical, So I remember that date I learned it because of that, reading that little biographical like thing on that I googled in high school, or learn things like that. And I would just like research on my own and try to learn as much as I could. Later on, it's just like I guess more college. I started grabbing more like a of you obviously you have to do it right because you have to, right, and you have to study it more because you have to. But I think I found that interest, and I found that like I enjoyed like reading more about composers or different things in music that I took it upon myself to try to learn. Felt that there were things that I needed to know, and then I was not gonna get it. I I got a little. I guess I felt that when I ended up going to like I guess a CPS, right? That it was like a local school. It was not viewed like in scores as like the best schools and things like that. And then I always I was I was making the shift from Mexico, where I had gone in a town to like like to a good school because you have like good average, and they reward things like that. And then I'm completely changed to a different country where you have to learn, and it's different. And then I come to the school that it's not known for having like the highest level, right? CPS, and like and then thinking like I'm not getting the education that I'm supposed to be getting or something, because I'm coming from an education system where you had to know with different curriculum, right? And then I come to see it to a different country, and it's completely different. So it was a little bit of a struggle there, trying to feel like I guess compensate for like things that I'm supposed to know. So I had to find it on my own, right? And try to do this like learning on my own, because it was something that I felt that I was kind of catching an interest on. So I just on my own just found that interest of looking more. And then furthermore, like when we get the internet, YouTube, like I would research, I would like listen to just like scores and like music and like follow scores. Like I don't know why I find that fun. Or listen to lectures on on different pieces, or like how they break down like different repertoire of music for like different purposes, from the orchestration viewpoint, from like intonation, or analyzing a score in a certain way. And I find that interesting. And and then I love documentaries and composers, and it's just I like watching that kind of thing, and that's why.
Yeah, I think if do you think that there's a tie between the love of the sound and everything that went into making that sound, which includes the history of like the instruments, and there's a whole history there. I mean, you don't just get to hear Mahler and then forget about all of the influences that he had. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It helps understand. And I think there there's one of the things I enjoy a lot are Chicago used to do a series, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, Beyond the Score, that they analyze a piece in the context of the history of the composer, and then how the piece and their life, and then how it all ties into the piece with tiny bits. And it's very interesting. I think San Francisco Orchestra does a similar thing. Michael Tilson Thomas does Michael Thomas Tilson. Sorry, he does this a series with they explore music. You know, they've done Symphony Fantastique. They've done different pieces, and they analyze the
Famous ones.
the composer. Yeah, yeah, the composers, and then the score, and then obviously at the end they present the piece. You know, with the orchestra. It gives you a better understanding of the piece. I mean, they're fun. You know, I mean, they're at a basic level. I mean, they're very, but they're very. They make. I think they make them very interesting
Mm.
and easy to follow, but it makes you understand the piece better. You know, and I think you can connect more with it because sometimes we don't realize like the composer like they're their masterworks or artworks for a reason. And then you discover their work. You see like maybe you hear like growing up like I don't know, many people have different like music experience, but you hear like maybe I guess the one a popular one in the US is Fantasia, right? You learn classical
Yeah.
music from Fantasia, Rite of Spring. I'm gonna be criticized, but like I haven't seen the whole thing, right? But like I know all these works, like I've listened to them on their own. I don't need the I don't need the images to go with them. I naturally listen to those. I've listened to those works, right? But you hear a lot of that there in your connection to music, and then like it's moods, it's many things that you have with the connections in music, but I mean,
Did you feel like you needed music? Like growing up, did you feel like without music, like like did it fill some part of your soul that like just nothing else could fill?
it's funny that you mentioned that because I think it appeared, maybe I went to it at the right time or at the time that I needed it,
Mm.
if that makes any sense. But because I mean, I think it was for me a tool to adjust to moving to a different country. I think that's where I like saw a refugee, and I don't know if refuge. I don't know if I was in the
Refuge.
refuge. Sorry, I don't know if I was in the and that's what like helped me, I guess, cope with the whole moving to a different country. I think I think that's where that's what helped me make that transition and make to me that was the tool that made this whole thing make sense, right? This whole change to me, like I had like a big like change, like social uh, clash that I was like I don't know what's going. It's different, right? How things work different in a different country. So that was my way of adjusting to this whole change, and then that's where I started music. Before that, I had started learning a little bit, but it was not like a big part of me. I think it made more sense. It was more of a thing that I went to when I moved to the U.S. to Chicago, and it was in high school, and I think a lot of times to avoid like I guess I mean we all have to struggles, right? But like I think my struggle in high school was like a little bit of like social like thing, like fitting in with society in a way that like I went to music, so I spent a lot of time in high school in the practice room or like it was also new, so discovering a lot of that, and then the time that I would find is like during my lunch period, I would just go there. Maybe I don't recommend it, but I might have cut a class or two and gone to orchestra. I was go to orchestra and like go to a practice room, and that's what I was doing, right? Especially a class that I didn't really want to go to or something, right? I mean, I remember like leaving my Spanish class because I was like, this is too easy. I could be practicing, just, I'm like, I don't need to be here. I could be practicing violin. And that was, that was what I did. And I think that that's what helped me a little bit. I find like I guess a self of identity, right? Like I identify in that group, and like interestingly enough, I wasn't like it's in a Chicago area, more like urban, I guess. That why would you? I mean, I'm glad that they opened the orchestra. I don't know that they would they have it now at this moment, but I'm glad they did it. I I mean, it helped me, I think, and and I think those like artworks sometimes help you find your way in a sense, right? Connect in different. I think one of the silly enough, I guess, history was one of the classes that I was like struggle with in high school, and if it was through the learning that music composer that I started to like finally placing things. I started finally placing things in like chronological historical order, and funny enough, it was through music
I have to say, like my one
that
example
helped
is
me understand
like I
history.
remember learning about Napoleon, and that was it in school.
Mm.
And then you start tying in like Beethoven's relationship with Napoleon, and you're like, whoa, there's more to it.
Yeah. Silly enough, yeah, it was through music that I was like, oh, now history makes sense. I remember that too. That helped me a lot with like history of in the U.S. Right? Like,
What I want to know then is if you didn't have music, what would you be doing? Do you have any hobbies? Do you do anything besides music and work?
I mean, I mean, I have my typical. I like my reading here and there.
You read?
I like to, yeah, I like to
What do you read?
read. I've I'm a fan of like Haruki Murakami, Japanese writer. I like reading a lot of Latin American writers. Um, that's some things that I like to do. I mean, I've been involved in other organizations other than music. I know I there was a time in that I was a member of the Mexican Folkloric Dance Company of Chicago. So I've done some dancing as well. And it helped me embrace my roots. And you know what? Obviously, arts go dance and music. I mean, how much closer can that help? And honestly, dance has definitely had an impact in my musicality. I can say, and everything goes hand in hand. Even when people in my own group like didn't support it, it's like you're not a dancer, you're a musician or whatever. And it's like and it's a part of me that allowed me to explore my musicality in different ways, because of dance. Part of a performance that we don't think of, that you learn in dance, that you doing, that you can definitely connect with music. I think it goes very well. So I mean, I've done that. And I could totally do that again as well, because I think it enhances the musical
Everything
learning.
comes back to music for you. Even,
Yes, I think. But
like
yeah, arts mostly. I think it's a thing uh, that I enjoy like doing.
you do
I
art,
mean,
you paint.
if there was an opportunity, I would do it. It just takes a lot of time. It's time consuming.
What kind of art?
I'm saying about dancing. Like
Oh,
I would still do it, but it's time consuming.
oh
Absolutely,
yeah. So
it's very demanding. So is music, right? You have to practice every day. It's not like for music at least. I mean, I know I have to. Famous violinist Joshua Heifetz. Something to say about like you practice one day, you know it 2 days. He had a saying. I don't want to quote it the whole thing.
what was
Misquote
it?
him.
What is he trying to say?
Something about like like basically practice every day, right? You don't practice one day, you notice 2 days. People close to you notice 3 days. Like the rest of the world knows it, or something like that.
Oh
What
yeah.
about like like you have to practice every day,
Hmm.
because one day you can tell you didn't practice, but 2 days, or days. It has to be consistent.
Yeah.
I remember hearing a saying, like if anybody finds some kind of like trying to find a, because music can be a little bit draining, right? When trying to frustrating when you're trying to learn a piece and you just don't get it. I don't know if anybody has felt that kind of feeling, right?
Yeah.
Right, right. But it's like, what do they call it? Like the water drop that breaks the rock, right? You can have a water stream, just like a little drop every day, and like over time it can like break a stone in two. Is that like everyday constant, like everyday, like consistency of practicing every day that would lead you to break the ground, or something like that. And then I guess you have to find that to be consistent, because I'm sure we all can relate as musicians that the groundwork is needed in some sense. It's like,
Always.
you know.
Well, hey man, I gotta go make breakfast. It's early in the morning,
Yes,
but so good to see you, man. I really enjoyed it. I hope you had fun too.
I absolutely did.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna end it.
Nice seeing you.
Nice seeing you. Thanks for taking the
What's
time to
it?
do this.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm gonna listen to it again. I'm gonna enjoy it.
Sure.
All
All
right.
right.
See you,
My rambling.
Gerardo.
I'll see you. Nice seeing you. Stay healthy.